welcome. This is the Town of Fairfax Planning Commission meeting, public hearing for Thursday, September the 17th via teleconference. All of our town public hearings right now, public meetings are being conducted via teleconferencing or other electronic means consistent with the state of California executive orders N2520 and N2920 to protect public health while still maintaining transparency and public access. The town will not offer an in-person physical meeting location for the public. The public will be able to view the meeting on television and online as usual, and participate in the meeting by teleconference and email. Members of the public may join or watch the meeting live using any of the following options. You can go to https://www.townoffairfax.org/watch-live/ or https://cmc.tv. You can also attend this meeting via Zoom by either entering the webinar ID 842-7052-1962. That's 842-7052-1962, or you can call in at 1-669-900-6833. Members of the public may provide public comment during the meeting using one of the following options. You can provide public comment via the live streaming meeting on the town website or by emailing Neal, N-E-A-L, at townoffairfax.org. Please reference the agenda number item. Or you can submit your comment via Zoom here by raising your electronic hand function during the public comment time, and you will be unmuted when it's your turn. If you're calling in, please press *9 during the public comment time to raise your hand and *6 to be unmuted to speak. Comments on matter not on the agenda must be submitted prior to the time the chair calls for such comments. Prior to the meeting, as always, members of the public may submit written comments to the Planning Commission, and these comments will be part of the meeting record, but they will not be read out loud at the meeting. Meeting protocol. The chair shall maintain order at the meetings in accordance with Robert's Rules of Orders, and the Commission has the responsibility to be a model of respectful behavior in order to encourage community participation and citizen input at Commission meetings. The Commission and the audience are expected to refrain from using profane language and or ridiculing the character or motive of Commission members, staff, or members of the public, and to maintain the standards of tolerance and civility. Okay, now we're going on to the public comments on non-agenda items. Is there anyone wishing to address the Commission on matters not on the agenda, but
Chair,
within the...
Chair, I think we need to call, don't we need to call roll?
Yes.
Okay.
It shows on my agenda later, but I'll do it now, whatever you want to do.
I think it's supposed to be before public comment and then approval of agenda. If we left it off or it's out of order, we apologize.
Okay. We'll call the meeting to order. Did you want to do the roll call?
I will. Okay. Clark? Fragoso? I think you have to respond with a yes. Okay.
Yes, I'm here. I was just trying to get to my unmute button. Thank you.
Okay, great. We understand. Okay. Fragoso?
Here.
Gonzalez Parber is absent. Green is absent. Newton?
Here.
Swift?
Here.
Chair Rodriguez?
Present.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on a matter not on the agenda, but within the jurisdiction of the Commission? This is the time to do that. You will be given 3 minutes. Is there anyone from the public who has raised their hand, Pamela?
You do have a number of hand raised. They have been raised for a while. I'm not sure they're all specifically for items not on the agenda, but I should probably allow them to talk and we should confirm. First is Lynn Yetter.
Point of order.
Unmute. Okay. So I was wondering,
Could you, on just a moment, I have a point of order and a question for the chair. I apologize for
that's
it.
fine.
Michelle, I am now completely lost. Could you help me understand where we are?
I'm looking at my agenda, page 2. We are at the public comments on non-agenda items before the consent calendar item.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Go ahead, Ms. Yetter. And you can see the 3-minute timer. If you could start that timer, Tamala, please.
Yes.
Do I have to wait till it starts? Okay. So I was wondering if it would be possible for town council and the planning department to have town hall meetings where people in the community could ask questions and you guys could answer so that we could have more crosstalk. Because it seems writing emails, going to the meetings, I always leave unfulfilled, really, never really knowing what's going on. So I was wondering if that would be something that could be considered 2 times a year, possibly, so that we can really engage. The other thing I had a concern, well, not a concern, but it was SB 1120. I think September 1st didn't go through. That's probably going to come back up again. I remember going to a meeting at town council about how confusing and it was for people here and how they could control things. I wanted to know if you guys were going to speak to that topic at some point to the public, because I really don't want all those homes jammed onto properties. And then I also have a problem with the cottage size homes being taken out and torn down and built up, like 800 square foot home cottages that go like to 1,000, 1,200. Then normal houses in some of the neighborhoods are like 2,200 square feet. I just think by getting rid of those homes, we're eliminating places for single people to live, people that are just 2 people or 3 people. And those are people I want in my community too. And I want people to come to this neighborhood and not have to try and have enough money to buy a 4, 5, 6 bedroom house. I mean, it's too much. I want places for seniors to live and have a yard in the little houses that we have. And I just want to keep embracing that, because I think we're really going to be shutting out if a lot of people come here, tear down, build up, make these big homes, and then you can't even move out of your house now into a smaller home here because they're just getting extinct. So I'd like to see some interest and passion in that from the planning department and town council too. I know this isn't mixed, but that's why I mean a town hall meeting, we can engage with both. I'm concerned about the wall property up the hill. They haven't really heard much on what's going on with that. I do get the emails. He's not doing weeds on the street here. That bothers me. He says he doesn't have enough money to do it, whatever. So I'd like to kind of know more on what's going on with that, because I'm not thrilled about it because I live on Marinda. I don't think we need pools. We have global warming. We don't need pools on big properties. 11 seconds. And why can't we have a moratorium on building like Little Town, Colorado, Chicago, Atlanta, New York, Florida? They are not getting rid of little single family homes. That's it.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you. And I'm just pointing out Ben Berto is our planning director. And so you can always connect with him to debrief on some of these items, and he can bring you up to speed on that. And so our next speaker. Did you want me to call on them? Sharab Bogan?
Oh, I'm
okay,
sorry.
ahead.
I was
sorry.
actually allowing Richard, I believe, to talk.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, this is Rick Hamer in Fairfax. Good
could you
evening.
wait 1 second, please? I
Okay.
need to start the timer officially. let me just get this up, and here is. Thank you for your patience. Oh, it went off. There we go. Thank you.
You ready?
Go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, hi. I wish to refresh my public concern about wildfire safety, that wildfire safety goes beyond the efforts of the Ross Valley Fire District or the minimum standards required by building codes. Here in Fairfax, let's emphasize a doctrine of effort, extra effort. First, on a drive out, Sir Francis Drake entering San Anselmo, there's a sign about NOAA radios saving lives. Last year, the county grand jury brought up NOAA radios. Fairfax passed on applying NOAA radios to any of their wildfire safety plans, but it mattered enough to San Anselmo. I brought up NOAA radios during the Fairfax town meeting, and I'm bringing up NOAA radios again now. NOAA radios add moments. Every moment a person gets as a head start from an approaching wildfire count. Moments that would have mattered to those who died during this past month's wildfires. Please get NOAA radios on our agenda in Fairfax. Commissioners, let staff hear this over and over. If the commission can make conditions about color or trim, why is a safety device that can cost as little as $30 not as important? The Planning Commission regularly adds extra conditions to projects and uses under its review to better fit them into our community. The scope goes beyond noise, appearance, and neighborhood compatibility. We need to go beyond this typical finding, which I'll quote from a draft resolution on the agenda tonight. Quote, the health, safety, and welfare of the public will not be adversely affected, unquote. Can't we find just a few more words to stress the importance of wildfire safety than these? And can we really mean it before we approve another monument to danger? Reverberations of climate change were in the news last week. Here, our governor, climate change reform starts at the local level too. Climate change is a finding and ought to be a compulsory finding. All the policies and conditions of the Planning Commission should pass through the climate change question. What can this zoning do, or what can this use do to make a dent in carbon? What will a color do for energy consumption, therefore help climate change even a tiny bit? My point is that no item should pass through the commission without this question being raised. Could we as a commission have found a way or done a better job addressing climate change during the review of this agenda item? Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. We now have Jill next. Jill.
Hi, Tamala and the Planning Commission. I just wanted to make sure that I am a participant when we get to the agenda item.
You will be. So if you do not have something to say that's not on the agenda, we'll just go to our next speaker. Thank you for checking in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Morgan Hall. Morgan Hall. Please unmute yourself.
I'm going to address myself to the agendized item at 6 Walsh Lane.
Okay, please wait for that time then, sir. And I just want to be sure that the public knows these are for items that are not on the agenda. Next, we will ask Sharad. Yes. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Talk about 6 Walsh.
Okay, thank you. I will ask people to not raise your hand at this time unless it's about an agenda item. So I'll just give everybody a moment. Could you lower your hand if you do not have something to discuss right now? And now we will ask Dee Lee to talk. Dee Lee, you have been unmuted.
Hello, Dee Lee, Deborah Benson, Fairfax. I would like to speak on the trees. I'm a member of the Fairfax Tree Committee. And I see recommendations in staff reports over and over to remove bay trees because of fire clearance and recommendations by fire. I've been having some communications with Fire Safe and also Chief Weber around this issue, and attempting to have meetings with staff around this as well. I have emails from Jason Weber, Fire Chief, saying our defensible space inspectors rarely, if ever, recommend tree removal. There was a project on Forest Avenue some months back where the vegetation management plan called for the removal of some 37 bay trees, which would have clear cut the hill. Jason Weber was kind enough to attend our tree committee meeting, as was the fire marshal who signed off on the vegetation management plan. And at that meeting, the fire marshal said, well, they give us a plan and we just sign off. We're not telling them to cut down the trees. And the fire marshal and the chief went back to that property and came back with some modifications to the bays, but only one tree had to be removed because it was in a spot where there had to be a fire truck turnaround. I also have communication from Fire Safe Marin saying that they do not support the wholesale removal of California bay laurel based on its species alone. While bays can and do contribute to wildfire hazard, that hazard can most often be mitigated through maintenance by removing shrubs and dead vegetation, fallen limbs, grasses, etc., from the base of the tree and beneath its canopy, and removing lower limbs. This maintenance work mimics what nature would have done with fire and grazing, browsing by animals, had we not interrupted the natural processes. And this language can also be found on Fire Safe Marin's website. In some cases, they say the shape, structure, health, or location of the tree necessitates its removal, and that I know I'm running out of time, although the individual trees contain volatile oils and the leaf litter and debris is combustible, the trees and the shade they provide can naturally suppress grass and shrub growth. In many cases, this may actually limit wildfire hazard. So I would like to see us come together as a town and have some conversation about this, because I keep seeing this wholesale recommendation for removal of the bays. Thank you.
If I could respond to that very briefly. We have been in touch with Deborah and we are aware of this issue, including specifically about bays. And both the town manager and Chief Weber have indicated that they would like to schedule another meeting with the tree committee and discuss that, because I think we all share concerns about the approach and the need to clarify what the goal is with fire safety plans, vegetation management plans, and the town's trees, and specifically with bay trees. So the challenge, of course, is that once you're into fire season, they're pretty much not available. So Deborah, I can just say that it has been discussed more than once, and it is the intention that that will be brought up in a meeting with the tree committee and the various involved parties.
And can we also loop in Cindy Swift, who had originally been volunteered to participate in a series of meetings with the fire department, given her experience in the WUI, if she's interested and available, and then that will make that linkage to
that sounds
the Planning
great.
Commission.
Can we also include the Open Space Committee and and Ray Morris, the town arborist, because we had been looking at the potential for bay trees to be vectors for sudden oak time when I was on the Open Space Committee. My recollection.
Well, we could certainly talk about the breadth of the meeting and the conversations. So sure, I'll bring that into the conversation as well.
And we do have a few more hands up. Next is Morgan Hall. Morgan Hall, go ahead and unmute.
I'm sorry, I was going to address the item on 6 Walsh Lane. I don't know why my hand is
Okay,
up.
we'll ask you to wait for that time. And then we also have Laura. Laura, is this about something not on the agenda? Laura?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, yes, there's a technical issue because there's one of my clients can't get into the meeting. He's like kicked out or something. He can't. So how do we resolve that problem?
Has he dialed back in?
He told me because he contacted me when the meeting started, but it's like he can't get logged in.
I am not sure what is going on with that. Is there another Zoom address he can log in with, perhaps? Does he have a friend or a neighbor or somebody else?
Okay.
Because I can't
think he
check
tried
that.
to use what was listed on the agenda, which
Mhm.
I forwarded to him, but it says it won't allow him to connect.
Laura, has he tried to phone in and use there's a couple of phone numbers there and use the meeting ID information? Sometimes, that's another way to get in, is to use your phone instead of your computer.
Restart the computer. I've had to do.
All of that.
Okay, well, I will relay the message, and then I guess I'll let you know if I'm sending him a text. So hopefully
He can definitely call in via phone. There are a couple of other options. Yeah.
Through the chair, he should also confirm that he has a Zoom app on his computer.
That's a good suggestion.
Okay, so I think he was testing it earlier and it worked fine, but now it's not. So that's why he was asking for help. So, and I didn't know how else to do that. So
he can call in. Please
Okay.
transmit that information.
All righty.
Okay, so that concludes our public comments on non-agenda items. Thank you very much for
Point of
all of
order
that.
through the chair.
Thank you for all.
I'm sorry, point of order through the chair. We've not approved the agenda yet, and we bypass consent calendar. We don't have a consent item, but usually we say there's no consent item and then adopt the agenda or approve the agenda, which could be the very next thing.
My agenda shows consent calendar is next, and that there is no item on here to approve the agenda. So I'm leery to create something that's not on the agenda. But I'll go to the consent calendar item. I see that there is no consent calendar items on the agenda. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start the public hearing items. And this is for 6 Walsh Lane, application 20-8, a continued consideration of the Hill Area Residential Development Design Review, tree removal and excavation permit for a 50% remodel of an existing 1,500 square foot 3-bedroom, 2-bath, single family residence and 2-story addition to construct a 2,800 square foot 5-bedroom 4-bathroom single family house with a 2-car garage. On this particular item, I'm going to need to abstain and recuse myself from this item because of the proximity to my own residential property. So I'd like to entertain a vote to nominate a temporary chair for this item.
If I can interrupt you for a moment, before we start and you leave, I move to approve the agenda for this evening. Over. Is there a second?
Second.
Shall I call the roll?
Is that okay?
All those in favor?
Vice Chair Rodriguez?
I need to call the roll.
Go ahead and
Okay,
call the
I'm
roll.
going to call the roll. Clark?
Aye.
Fregoso,
Aye.
Newton,
Aye.
Swift,
Aye.
Chair Rodriguez.
No, because it's not listed on the agenda. So we were entertaining a motion for nominate a chair pro tem for this item. Is there a nomination for someone?
I nominate Cindy Swift.
I second that nomination.
Go ahead and take a, is there any other nomination or can I close that nomination?
You might have to accept it.
Cindy, do you accept that nomination?
I accept that.
Thank you. Can we take a roll call vote, Linda?
Okay, Clark,
Aye.
Fregoso,
Aye.
Newton,
Aye.
Swift,
Aye.
Chair Rodriguez.
Aye. I'm going to go ahead and leave the meeting and I hope I can come back. Goodbye.
So can I have the staff report, please?
All right, and unmute there. Okay, so this item was continued from the last meeting on August 20th, and the Planning Commission gave staff the following direction regarding the project. The first item was to provide more information from the Ross Valley Sanitary District about the whether the project property's sewer lateral is code compliant, and also whether the ownership and responsibility of the project proper, and also you also wanted information from the Ross Valley Sanitary District about the ownership and responsibility of the project property sewer lateral. Then the second item was you wanted the town attorney to respond to the letter from the property owner's attorney, and the town attorney did do that. And I just want to make sure that she's sent that email correspondence last night around 10 to 8. And I just want to make sure that everybody got that. So you've seen her. Okay. Okay. So regarding the sewer lateral code compliance, town planning staff and staff from the sanitary district visited 10 Walsh Lane on September 3rd. And during the site visit, the associate engineer from the sanitary district inspected the lateral and did confirm that it is code compliant. He noted that the lateral appears to be buried approximately 9 inches below grade. And he did state that in a non-traffic area, there is discretion regarding the depth of cover. It's 12 inches below, buried below soil, but he did say there is some discretion. So, there are some photographs attached to the staff report, and we did try to kind of give a little bit of a comparison so you could see there's a water bottle, sort of give you an idea of how deep it is buried. And the reason why the pipe is exposed right now is because it was uncovered by the property owner at 10 Walsh. They did dig that up to expose the pipe. And let's see, okay. So he did confirm that the pipe's condition is not a health and safety issue. And I did also get an email confirmation from that engineer saying that the lateral passed all inspections. It was determined to be in compliance, and it has a certificate of compliance that's good for 20 years. So they're okay with the sewer lateral. Regarding the ownership and responsibility, the sanitary district has this ordinance 100, and it addresses ownership, maintenance, and repair of private sewer laterals, and I've attached that as attachment D. And essentially, I did a email correspondence just to confirm this. Oops, wait a minute. Okay, here we go. Nope, wrong one. make sure I state this correctly. So, so basically, what I confirmed with the associate engineer from the sanitary district is that 6 Walsh Lane is only responsible for the portion of the lateral that runs from their house on their property and the portion of the lateral that runs across 10 Walsh. And then when the lateral gets to 20 Walsh, where it is tied in with 20 Walsh, it's a shared lateral. Then at that point, it's the responsibility of 20 Walsh. So that's, and he confirmed that, yes, that's correct. So they're basically responsible for the portion on their property where it goes through, because it's private, it's their lateral on 10, and then when it gets to 20 where it's shared, then 20 is responsible for it. So that sort of sums up the lateral ownership and responsibility. And then the attorney comments were provided to the Planning Commission already, so they have those. And that concludes this staff report for this continued item. So I guess the recommendation now is to conduct the public hearing and move to approve the application 20-8 and adopt resolution number 2020-08 that sets forth the findings and conditions for the project approval.
Okay, thank you. Now, does anyone from the Planning Commission have questions for staff? And I can't see everyone, so.
No questions on my end.
Yeah, me either.
I'm good.
Okay. And that's all of us, right? Then I'm going to ask if the applicant wishes to make any comments or say anything. Or the applicant's representatives.
Did we lose Laura now?
Well, and did we get confirmation that the client was able to access the Zoom meeting? You're on mute, Kara.
Sorry, Tamala was trying to help me fix the Zoom so we could get the other person, Laura's client, to participate. So I'm sorry, it was
Okay. So can you wait?
And Laura's raised her hand.
Okay, can you
I can hear her.
I think, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, alrighty. So I do, so David, I think he wanted to see if he could participate, the client's
If you
representative.
could just give us 1 second. I need to go on Kara's computer and fix it because I am not a town employee. So 1 minute.
All right, thank you.
You're muted, Kara.
Sorry, I'm trying to get the Zoom stuff going so he can participate in the meeting. And
okay.
Here, actually, let me talk to Ben in the background. I'll do it then.
Okay. So I think Tamala is going to actually have Ben help her because it's I'm having trouble remembering my password. So she's going to try to get Ben to help.
Let me know if there's anything I can do or what you want me to do.
She's trying to change the settings on the Zoom so Laura's client can participate in the meeting.
I'll text you what if you could just sign into your settings as you are a public employee and have control over the webinar, and I'll text you real quick what to do. So sorry about that.
Through the chair, in the meantime, if Laura is available, could she begin? the presentation and we'll bring the owner on afterwards?
Okay, yeah, so, yeah, I would just like to make sure that, that David and our attorney, Neil, are able to participate. But anyway, I guess I can go ahead and start. So anyway, are you in receipt of the letter that I sent to staff a few days ago in response to the neighborhood letter
Yes.
that was attached to the staff report? That you all received that copy?
Yes.
Okay, good. But if I would like to be able to read it, because I'd like to be able to for the public to be able to hear our response to, because we've taken a great time and care to make sure that we had, you know, an application that met all the town requirements, and we've been, you know, trying to be, you know, try to make it the best project that we can. So the homeowner, Maritza Chu, and her representatives do not know how the misinformation that this project is for a for-profit venture was spread. The property has many deficiencies, including a crumbling foundation, unsafe electrical system, lack of parking, and deferred maintenance of the entire property that must be corrected to make it habitable and to be able to move into the property. The homeowner and her representatives have been transparent about the needed improvements and have invited the neighbors to view the plans and inspect the property for themselves. All of the improvements that are proposed are for the benefit of the neighborhood, including fire safety upgrades. Since the homeowner acquired the property a year ago, she has worked to be respectful of her surrounding neighbors during the design process by honoring all setback requirements and the location of proposed decks and windows. She has worked with a local architect who's a resident of Fairfax and has previously been a member of the town's Design Review and Plan Commission. The homeowner has tried to be a good neighbor by trimming her neighbor's trees at her own expense. And it's been very distressing to her to try to renovate her property by following all the regulations and have the neighborhood opposed to her needed improvements. The size of the home is controlled by existing conditions, which include the 1,510 square foot main floor and improving an existing 950 square foot lower floor basement. And Tamala, where is if I wanted to share the existing conditions, where am I able to do that? I don't see the share button. But anyway,
Yeah, so
now I see it. Okay.
Okay, good, because Tamala's trying to get that.
I'm sorry, I tried to just turn it on. You should see it.
Okay. All right, can you see that? See my slides here? So currently, this is what the basement area looks like. So it's the space is existing. It's almost full height. Over here, you can see where the previous owner did like a creative foundation repair by adding on underneath the existing foundation. And there's cracks, there's water flowing in, there's it's crumbling. So with all the expense that's needed to repair this area, you know, my client wants to be able to improve the space as well. So that's where a lot of the square footage is coming from, is this existing lower floor that's underneath the existing home. There is an addition that's planned on the side of the property. This is the existing conditions. This is where the house is. There's improvements right here that are like patio and all that. And so the plan is.
Sorry, Laura, this is Tamala. I apologize for interrupting you. Are you trying to share your screen right now? Because I don't see your screen.
Oh, yes, I am. Sorry. Okay.
So
thank you for letting me know.
I was trying to figure out what was wrong with me.
Alrighty, so is it working now?
No,
No,
All right.
I'm going to ask you to start your video, and then if you hit the green
It's
share
not
in the middle.
video. Okay. All right. Oh, so I say okay, and then I do share screen. I'm not doing video though. Is that okay?
You don't have to do any video, just hit the share screen.
All right, but it's asking me to show video, so can you
just
see
say
anything?
no.
Can you see anything?
Nope.
All right, so but if I say share my start my video, or do I say
No, you should share screen and pick the document that you're trying to share. You don't need to do anything with the video.
Okay. All right, and that's not working?
No, we do
It
not
isn't.
see your screen. Are you hitting the share screen and finding your document?
Yes.
And then after you click on the document, are you hitting the share one more time? The button on the bottom, blue? Or double clicking on the document?
Okay, I'll try to double click. Still, do you see anything?
No, ma'am, but we did accomplish this earlier, so I know we can do it.
I know.
So I'm just gonna,
there's my video.
All
Okay,
right.
so now maybe that's what I did wrong. Share screen. Can you see it now?
Nope, we see you. You gotta click on the document and then hit another share again. There's a blue share button in the bottom of the window. It's straight across from a command that says share computer sound or screen for video clip. You need to
All right.
click on your document and click that blue
Oh,
button.
there's a blue up at the corner? No. All right.
It's how it says share.
I see the share at the green corner, at the green.
Do that one first.
Okay. And then I see okay. And then, do you see it now?
No.
All right. Well, I'll just keep going.
Does Linda or someone else have your PDF file?
I did send it to Linda like you told me to.
Okay.
Okay, so anyway, so there's additions planned on the side of the building where the adjacent to the home footprint that's currently being developed, that already developed on the site. Only one corner of the new addition where the grade is much lower than the rest of the home footprint is approximately 31 foot 10, where 35 foot is allowed. The requested height is a result of a new addition roof line conforming to the existing home roof line. The 3 and 12 roof pitch is minimum needed for a composition shingle roof. The opposite side of the proposed addition is seen from Walsh Lane is proposed at 26 foot 5 inches. The exterior material cement board was chosen to make the home fire safe. The colors were chosen are dark or natural or dark colors in order to blend in with the natural setting and the assorted eclectic mix of homes in the neighborhood. The panel reveal system is designed to be used on residential projects. It allows for a design contrast between exterior materials. And I did have a photo that from another project that I had in San Rafael to show how it looks on a residential project. It's neighborhood speculation that the property will be sold. The property has many deficiencies and is costly to remediate. The homeowner has no plans to sell the property at this time. Parking is being created where only a dirt space for one car currently exists. Can you see my?
Oh, we can see it.
Okay, great. So anyway, this is where, oops, I guess you didn't, basically if you could scroll then to where the basement photos were. Okay, so that's what's existing there now and what the state of the foundation is that needs to be replaced, and it's kind of driving the whole project. All right, so if we can keep going through those. And then this is the corner where it's the lowest, where we have the tallest. This is where I think it's going to be approximately 31 foot 10. There's this existing wood retaining wall that's going to be the back of the new garage. So that's really the only corner. And the next picture was the example of the Hardy reveal panel of another project in San Rafael. And it just was coincidence. It was the same color that we have proposed. So, and then I think there was, I don't remember. Okay, this was just some other of what the existing proposal is like. So, parking is being created where only a dirt space for one car currently exists. So as not to request a variance, the proposed garage follows the 15-foot side yard setback and allows just enough space for a 2-car garage. The civil engineer for the project has ensured that the driveway meets allowable slopes and vehicle maneuvering. It would be nice if we had more space to make the garage a little bit bigger, but that would require variance. And that's what we were trying to avoid with this project. And there was one particular, I don't know if we can go back up to where the site, to the site plan. Yeah, the other one that had the yellow. The one corner is like 4'6" at the very front right corner. So that means I needed a 15-foot setback on the other side, adjacent where we have where we have the open space. Even though most of the setback is more than 5 feet, that's what we had to follow the 15-foot side yard setback. So that made just enough space for a garage. I mean, it'd be nice if it was a little bit bigger, but that's what was left, and there's just enough space. The size and design of the structure meets floor area ratio, lot coverage, and building height requirements. The new additions have been designed to blend and be proportional to the existing building. The proposed home improvements are similar to many other residences on hillside sites throughout Fairfax, and the proposed exterior materials were chosen to meet wildland-urban interface requirements and create a contemporary design. The surrounding homes are an eclectic mix of contemporary styles. The requested excavation for the project is 233 cubic yards, not 288 that was stated in the letter, that the neighborhood letter, and is the minimum needed for the required improvements. Includes 170 cubic yards for the new driveway, and that's on the left-hand side of the driveway. All of the driveways at natural grade. So there's no grading that's needed in that area. It's mostly on the other side, on the right side, where there's retaining walls needed. 56 cubic yards for the garage pad and 70 cubic yards for the new foundation retaining walls. No grading is proposed on the side yard setback adjacent to the driveway or in the rear of the property. The proposed excavation is considered reasonable for a hillside property and is similar to other recently approved projects in Fairfax. To suggest that the proposed excavation is characteristic of a highway project is an inflammatory statement. The site plan was prepared using a topographic survey, GIS mapping information, and aerial photos. From those sources, the proposed deck is located beyond the footprint of 10 Walsh Lane. Proposed deck is relatively narrow at 7 feet and is located at the only area where outdoor space can be located within the allowable building area on the property. The deck is oriented towards the rear of the property and has been designed to respect the privacy of 10 Walsh Lane. There are 2 large existing oak trees between the proposed deck and the adjacent neighbor. There's also approximately 30 feet between the adjacent residence and the proposed deck. Previously, we had a design where we had a deck that was alongside the south side of the property, but that was removed from this application. The existing basement space has a crumbling foundation with large cracks in it. During the rainy season, there's constant trickle of water flowing through the basement. Because of the expensive foundation repairs, the owner wishes to be able to improve the basement area and make it part of the living space with a centrally located big staircase. It's disingenuous to suggest there's a sneaky possibility the property will be used as 2 units. The lower floor space is existing. In order to correct the structural deficiencies of the upper floor framing, an infill addition has been created under the existing bedroom number 2. The spaces and rooms have been created as a result of the existing floor plan. In order to create an open floor plan, some of the rooms were removed and added to the basement area. The homeowner has no desire to include a second unit on the property. If the homeowner had, we would have had a different design and not have a central staircase preparing the project. So the survey, grading, and drainage plan, geotechnical reports have been provided as review as part of the proposed application. Those documents have been reviewed and approved by the town engineering firm. The project development is only proposed on existing disturbed areas. Existing and undisturbed areas are to remain. As stated previously, the requested excavation is the minimum needed for the required improvements. No grading is proposed in the side yard setback adjacent to the driveway. The proposed project will create an ingress and egress for vehicular and pedestrian traffic where none currently exists. A respected civil engineer has prepared the grading and drainage plan and it's been approved by the town's engineering consultant. More detailed plans will be provided as part of the building permit application as required by the conditions of approval. As stated previously, the size and design of the structure meet floor area ratio, lot coverage, and building height requirements. The building additions are proposed in currently developed areas of the property. So in summary, it's regrettable that the neighbors are resorting to spreading disinformation when the homeowner is only trying to upgrade your property to make it habitable. The proposed project meets all zoning requirements without variances and conforms to all required development permits. She spent considerable amount of cost, architectural design surveys, civil engineers, geotechnical engineers, structural engineers, and now an attorney. The homeowner would like to maximize her property now as she does not intend to remodel it for another 20 to 30 years. Valuable time has been lost to shelter-in-place closure and by investigating a sewer lateral issue that's been confirmed by Ross Valley Sanitary District to be in compliance with their regulation and passed all inspections. So as the trustee for the property and representatives respectfully request that the Planning Commission review the facts presented to you in the staff report and making a decision on this application. Thank you. I think we had the town's representative available for questions. We also have our attorney available for questions. I don't know if any of them want to make any statements.
And I do believe your client can log back in now.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone on the Planning Commission have questions for the applicant, for Laura? I'm going to just ask names because I can't see everybody on one screen. Mimi, do you have any questions right now for the applicant?
Not at the moment. No, thank you.
Okay, Norma?
I have no questions. That was a very clear and thorough report.
Okay. Shelley?
Same here. No questions.
Okay.
Thank you, Laura.
I have 2 questions. One is on the garage. Just a confirmation that for the spaces inside the garage, that would fit 2 9x19 spaces, so our standard size.
Yes, it just barely fits.
Okay. And then the other question I have is the upper level on the south side, there's windows there. Are those right now clear glass or obscure at all?
Well, as part of the the energy code, usually they need to have, that's like some kind of like tinting on them, if that's what you're talking about.
I was thinking along the lines of that they're next to the 10 Walsh properties. So just thinking about those windows, but that's fine for now. That answers my question.
And I think a lot of that side of the house is their garage.
Okay, all right. If there's nothing further from the applicant, then I'm going to open up the public comment. Tamara, so if you could.
Can I also ask one question? Is it possible that did you also receive the letter from the property owner?
Yes.
Miss Chu, I know. Is that able to be read to the into the record or anything? Could that be read into the record?
Linda, do you want to, or Kara, I'm sorry, do you want to address that?
It's part of the public record now that you've submitted it to me, so you're free to read it into the public record. Do you want me to read it?
Yeah, could you read it?
Okay, sure.
I think that would be nice if you could read it.
Okay. I have it right here. Whoops. I could also share it if you want on my screen. I can go ahead and do that.
Through the chair, it might be easier to just read it than to share a document that is hard to see.
Okay, no problem.
And abbreviate, a summary to some extent would be helpful.
Okay.
It's you can just go ahead and read the full letter. It's not, it's just a one-pager.
Okay.
Thank you.
It says, sure. To my neighbors on Walsh Lane, I purchased 6 Walsh Lane because I wanted to create a home for myself and my family that was safe and serene. Since purchasing the home, I have finished writing my 7th book at 6 Walsh with lots of inspiration from the surroundings and peacefulness this environment offers. While going through my divorce, this has been a very tranquil environment for me. With the recent loss of my mother from COVID-19 and the loss of my 19-year-old dog, I have found much peace in my new home, even there is much work to be done. As many of you can attest, the home needs remodeling. My plan was to remodel the interior, only adding a garage and master suite on top. The footprint of the home is not changing much. Therefore, I am extremely upset with the lynch mob, in quotes, response I am now getting after welcoming all of you into my home at any time to review and discuss the modifications to the structure. I currently live in a small community such as Fairfax. Neighbors discuss issues and solve problems. I am personally very hurt by the response of all the neighbors to a project that is not only going to enhance their surroundings, add value to their properties, but provide a safe, habitable residence with upgrades that will only add to the safety of the neighborhood. For the past year, both my project manager and myself have welcomed all of you into my home to review plans, discuss layouts, and gather support for the project. I have never heard any opposition, although welcoming all of you to discuss any concerns or feelings you have. Additionally, I have hired an amazing architect, a noted and well-respected one that previously sat on your planning commission. She has been extremely adept at navigating the processes and design landscape to ensure that this home is built to code and modeled to keep the integrity of the neighborhood intact. Together with a professional design landscaper, I have followed all appropriate protocols in a welcoming environment where the information has been free-flowing to all neighbors. The home in its current state is not habitable, unfinished, and poses many unsafe issues for myself, my family, and the neighborhood. My intent is to remodel the bottom level as a family space for my children and my autistic brother, who is my responsibility. I do not and have never intended to turn this home into a multiple family rental option. I found it quite disheartening that there was never any discussion of non-support prior to this time. My intention has never wavered. I have the intention to move into my home with my brother and have a room for each of my children, as well as an office and a guest room. Additionally, I heard that the neighborhood is upset that a non-Fairfax resident purchased the home. This is a personal attack on me, and I feel very discriminated against. I never would have thought I would have encountered this reaction from residents of Fairfax. On top of that, my adjacent neighbor, Morgan Hall, dug up my sewer lateral, leaving it exposed, causing us damages. Morgan, okay, so actually, town initiated the meeting with the sanitary district. So this sentence is actually incorrect. Morgan did not invite.
All right. And I think we already discussed that part in your staff report.
Oh, all right, so I'll just leave that out.
All right, so I think that was the so it's just the last part. I would like to see this project finished as soon as possible so I can begin the process of healing at my new home. Thank you, Marissa Chu. Okay, so I guess I'd like to ask if David, the project manager, or Neil would like to say anything.
Neil Sorensen?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Neil Sorensen, the attorney for the applicant. I guess I'm somewhat surprised that the city attorney sent the planning commission an email and it was not provided to the public or to the applicant and owner. We have been emailing and calling your staff and the city attorney for the past 3 weeks, trying to see if there were any issues concerning the letter that I sent in August, which I understand was referred to the city attorney. And we were told that we could not talk to them, that the city attorney was still reviewing the matter, and once they reviewed it, we would have access to that information. Now I'm hearing that we don't have access to that information. If the commission is going to use that information in making its decision tonight, I would object to the extent that we did not have access to it, did not have a chance to review it, and did not have a chance to rebut it. That said, I think that the legal issue is fairly clear here. The Planning Commission really does not have the jurisdiction to decide whether there's some kind of easement rights over the adjacent property. That's a matter for the local superior court. So I don't think it's a commission issue at all. And with that, I'll see if David Reuter, the applicant's representative, wants to speak.
If David Reuter is on the phone, can you do *9? Great. And you can do *6 to unmute yourself. I have allowed you to talk.
Just for clarification, is Mr. Ritter the project manager?
Yes.
Got it.
Mr. Ritter?
David, can you talk now?
Yes, I can talk. I have to say, first I want to say, I'll start by saying, again, thank you for all of you. I understand that you all volunteer for the town in these roles, and we and my client very much appreciate your time. I'm disheartened by how this whole thing has gone this evening. I'm disheartened by the fact that I've been muted throughout this entire process. I'm blocked from logging in on the Zoom because I would have liked to have participated in it.
Sir, you are not blocked anymore from logging in. Just so you know.
Earlier this evening, when I was making certain before the meeting that everything worked, I inadvertently wound up on, and then the host blocked me, and so all evening I've been blocked from being able to get in. So that said, does anybody have any questions for me?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So if we don't have any questions right now for the applicant, then I would go to open this up to public comment.
Okay, our first public comment will be D. Lee.
Hello. Surprised I'm first in line. I was standing out in my front yard. I live on Cascade Drive in Fairfax, and these bicyclists, I'm sure from out of town, rode by and were looking around and said, "What a nice old neighborhood." And it is. And Fairfax is made up of nice old neighborhoods. And this project, according to our design review standards, does not fit into the nice old neighborhood where it's placed. And I see over and over again recommendations for approval of these oversized projects, you know, next door to a cottage that would swallow, you know, would be swallowed into this project, two of them, you know, twice the size of any house in the neighborhood. And I think that you all have a job to do. I think you need to follow design review ordinance. We used to have a design review board. We don't anymore. That burden lays on you, and it may fit all of the setback requirements. It may fit the height requirement, although at 31 feet 10 inches, I'm not sure how that happened because our height is
problem with the timer, just so everybody knows, is why it
Oh,
keeps going
sorry.
forward and not backwards, and I don't know why.
I'll wait until you do that, just so I don't overtalk.
Well, if we haven't started the timer, Deb,
No, it's going the wrong direction.
So am I.
To 6 instead of down. I was trying to fix that in the background. I apologize for the inconvenience. I'm still trying to fix it.
Take 30 seconds off. I'm sure I talked for that long. Or I'll stop 30 seconds short. So shall I just stop at 6 minutes and we'll leave it at that since it's gone the other way? Right?
Yes, yes,
go,
please.
go ahead, Deb.
Okay, and I've just given up my 30 seconds. Okay, good. So we have something very precious here in Fairfax. Maybe one of the last true small towns left in America, and we have to protect it. You know, it used to be that, you know, somebody said, well, where are you going to live? Oh, Fairfax. So that's too far away from the highway. I can't go there. Well, now it's not. And there it's become a very popular destination, and it has a character, and we need to protect that character. It's very, very precious. All of this major excavation, there are lots being built upon now that people would never have thought of building upon before, with yards and yards of dirt being, you know, 300 cubic yards of dirt being taken out to construct these really big structures. I just want you guys to stand up for the town, and you're not going to go against any. We have design review to stand by. We're not going to restrict people's private property rights to build. This applicant has the right to remodel this house, and perhaps there's some sort of meeting ground, some medium meeting ground here, instead of calling in the attorneys and standing by. We want this giant house built to house us all. We're losing affordable housing. All these little cottages that we have provide affordable housing for us and for people who come after us. And I think it's really important that we make a stand here. And I really want you all to make that stand for us, because we love this place. And nothing, nothing against this applicant. Welcome to Fairfax, but please don't come in and completely change this little neighborhood by putting a mega house up. It makes a difference. So I guess that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I do have one more, Ms. Christoph Besser.
Hello, everybody. So you can hear me, I guess, right?
Yes.
Good. So what Lee just said is very similar to what I'm gonna have to say. I'm living across from the property in question, and I had a difficult but good conversation with Maritza several weeks ago, and I very much felt her pain, and it really hurt me too. So I see how difficult it is. I also saw people from the commission come up, and I really appreciate that too, that you guys come up and look at it. So I have pretty much confidence that you guys look at it, take it serious, and that's really important to me. Now, I hope that Maritza will not be hurt, and that was definitely not our intention here in the neighborhood, to hurt her personally, right? That would be stupid. But also, I think you guys and the people who do the project have to be aware not to hurt our feelings, right? So my guess was we have to find middle ground, because that's what we're supposed to do. And I'd be happy to find middle ground. But here is where my problem is.
No, it's okay. Just since we're going at this, stop.
It goes up. Just tell me when to shut up. I have about an idea, like at around 9 minutes. So, but you can tell me my time is up. So middle ground to me, I'm a math teacher. And middle ground to me is the average, right? And I started looking at the numbers, and nothing in that plan conforms to the average. The size is not average what the neighborhood is. The FAR or whatever all these weird numbers are, it's not what everybody has in the neighborhood. The height is not the average. So everything about this project is 40, 80, 100% above what everybody has. So when we say let's find a compromise, I want to do that, but nothing in these numbers, at least in the numbers, the way I look at it, show me it's a compromise. It's all double. I'm like, come on, man. If you want to fit in, then fit in, remodel, make it better. Wonderful. I welcome you. I loved your cookies, Maritza. Excellent. I ate them all. But I want you guys to hear us too. And we, all 9 people in the neighborhood, not one does not agree that the compromise does not mean the mega mansion and the double. It's just way too big and way too much. At least that's our impression. And the numbers, I think, show that. So that's my perspective. And my wife is talking in the background. Okay, 8:57.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Morgan Hall. And 1 second, just let me pause this and get this to a correct spot here. Mr. Hall, you should be allowed to talk at this time.
They left me out. They knew it.
Punch. Hi, this is Morgan Hall. You got me there?
We can hear you.
You can hear me. Well, I think this whole matter is a complete.
Mr. Hall, do you have something on in the background? Because we have a lot of echo.
Pardon? Can't hear you. What?
We have a lot of echo. If you have this Zoom meeting on in two places, could you please mute one?
Okay, my wife turned off her set. First of all, I was a member of the Planning Commission, and our directive was to follow the zoning code. Now, I can go out and design a house here, and it'll be 4,000 square feet. It'll have an FAR of 0.4. Since it's on a slope, I can make it 34 feet, 11 inches tall. It's all the code to that part of the code, the quantitative part of the code. That's kind of what this project on 6 Walsh Lane is. However, there's a thing called design review. There's a thing called the Hill Area Residential Development Overlay, and they define things beyond the maximal numbers. It says that whatever the project is should harmoniously relate to its setting. It should conform to the general character of the neighborhood, and it should be appropriate to the immediate area. Well, this house is a monster. It's at least twice the size of anything near it. The average square footage of the house on Walsh Lane is 1,350 square feet. The square footage here of 2,866 is more than double. The average height of the houses on Walsh Lane is 16.5 feet. They want almost 32 feet, close to double. The FAR requested is the maximum, 0.4. The average FAR in Walsh Lane is 0.17, less than half what we're talking about here. Excavation. Both design review and the Hillside Residential Development Overlay encourage both of them to minimize excavation, grading, minimize 288 or whatever it is yards of excavation. I've been in construction for almost 25 years, and all residential. I've never been on a residential project that even closely gets to 288 cubic yards. That's like something that Gelati Brothers does on the freeway. This is nuts. It just totally flies in the face of all of the things that are requirements of design review and the Hillside Residential Overlay. Left and right, every single one. I don't know what else. Let's see, there's excavation, the parking. Parking is first of all, you have 5 bedrooms. And you have parking, 2 in a garage, which I'm not sure you can get 2 cars in that garage because you've got this landing for bedroom number 3 that causes people to maneuver to get in and out of the garage. And since there's no guest parking on Walsh Lane, because it's a single lane, 10 feet wide, there has to be a tandem spot for guest parking in the driveway outside the garage. So you have one car.
Mr. Hall, can you wrap it up, please?
Well, I just think that I know I was always aware of the fact that any decision made by the Planning Commission had to be made carefully because it could set a dangerous precedent. And allowing this project to happen would allow all these other projects to come in that are grossly out of character with the neighborhood they're in, open the floodgates to speculative for-profit ventures. And I do remember what Mill Valley used to look like a number of years ago, and not that long ago, I had somebody say to me, Fairfax is a great town. It reminds me of Mill Valley 30 years ago. So planning commissioners, please follow the code. That's what you're there for, and that's why it's written. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have one more request from the audience to talk. I believe it's Thea.
Yes. No, I don't want to
Yeah.
say anything.
Okay, Tia and Juan Carlos, we're here.
Yes. Did
Yes.
you have a comment?
Yes, we have a comment. We live in Mountain View Road, and we can see the house from our terrace out. Then from the bedroom and from the deck. And then I would like to tell you something. Everybody doesn't agree to that. They don't like it because that will disturb the way in the way that little area works, function actually. It is okay to make projects to try to do new things probably, but this is an area which is already developed. Doesn't need new things. It is enough what we have already. Why we were trying to increase the
5 bedrooms.
5 bedrooms where there is no houses here of 5 bedrooms at all? And one other thing, little thing is, actually we live in Puerto Vallarta, in Mexico, and we witnessed how little change they did authorizing things like that in areas which for a long time live in a way and keep the way of life and the security and everything, the function of the areas. And they authorize little things, and now it's impossible to go there. It's terrible, ugly, all because somebody wants to make little money where they have the right. But why they don't go to a new areas and develop and invest there? And why they don't do that? Why they try to disturb areas which are already consolidated and perfectly working and function in the way they are? Obviously, where we hear this and where we know, of course, this violates all the codes. It's too big, and we don't understand
how they can even
they can do that.
And how they can consider.
And then the families here in this area, you don't find 5 bedrooms houses at all. The families are not big. Why try to do that? We don't get it. We don't understand why they want to make money on the behalf of the wellness of other people in the way we live now. Then
Can I say
You,
just
Tia.
one word? This is Tia. I talked last time also what I'm really concerned about with the horrible fires that we have everywhere. We are living on the hillside. We have barely a place to get down from this hill. I'm scared every day that something can happen here. And if there is more traffic, which will happen with 5 bedrooms, there are not only one person living in a house with 5 bedrooms. Nobody believes that. So there are many people have many cars. They have to park somewhere. The fire truck has to be able to get through. And I'm very concerned about that fact.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Former Mayor Frank Egger. Please unmute yourself.
Does that work?
Yes.
I can hear you.
Perfect. Frank Ager from Meadow Way. Well, Walsh Lane is not a public street. To my knowledge, Fairfax has not accepted it for public maintenance. The current structure is 1,510 square feet, according to the staff report. The proposal is to increase the size to 3,288 square feet of structure, not counting the decks. The average square footage of neighboring homes is 1,435 square feet. The proposed project more than double the current size and will change the neighborhood forever. Once one person does this, pretty soon the whole neighborhood's going to change. This project is located in the wildland urban interface zone. Emergency fire evacuation from this location will be almost impossible. The staff report is silent as to how future residents living in the 5-bedroom home will evacuate in an emergency. Please reject this project this evening as proposed. Reject it without prejudice so the owner can come back, owner or the applicant can come back and reapply for a smaller structure. Thank you very much.
Next, we have Barbara.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Yes. First of all, I just want to say that I'm a resident here on Walsh Lane for 36 years now, and I am absolutely thrilled that this house is finally getting some attention. It is an eyesore and a hazard, and it is been neglected for a very long time. So I'm thrilled about that. As everyone else has mentioned, it's the overall size of it. It's just too big for our tiny little neighborhood. Our lane is less than 10 feet, less than 300 feet long, and it is a city non-maintained street. And it does not fit into our neighborhood. And also concerned about the parking. I don't understand where this house, the parking they're proposing can support a 5-bedroom home. There is already so many cars parked on the street that it does present a safety concern. And finally, I just wanted to mention that on 2 occasions, David, the project manager, mentioned to me that he has a friend on the planning commission. So I just would hope that perhaps this person, maybe they've already recused themselves, I don't know, but to me that presents a conflict of interest, and I feel they should recuse themselves from the decision-making process of this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more public comment?
I do see a hand up from Morgan Hall, who has spoken once already. It's up to the chair whether to allow him to speak again.
Okay. I think we've heard from Morgan.
Oh.
Mimi, did you want to?
I wouldn't be opposed to Morgan having it. Is it Morgan or just someone using Morgan's line would be my question.
I'll have to open the line and ask.
It's for Sharab Bogan.
Okay.
You guys were talking to me and I got kicked out somehow. Yeah, I just wanted to say that it's too big. And now Morgan, I left my notes in the other room. Maybe you could get them for me. Yeah, I feel like this is going to look like an office building. Whereas all the rest of the character of the neighborhood is like little bungalows. And I did want to say the rear of the house is drawn incorrectly as far as the line of the house. And they would be looking in on our master bedroom and our master bath. And it's not drawn correctly. And we would lose all privacy in those 2 rooms and also on our deck completely. And yeah, so that sense of privacy would be gone. I'm very concerned, as we all are. Most of us are seniors on this lane, and we're very worried about fire season already, about how are we going to drive out of this teeny little 10-foot wide dirt road dead end that we live on. And to have, 14 truckloads of dirt coming and going? 40 truckloads of dirt coming and going? All the workmen, where are they going to park? And right here now with fire season, I mean, we're all scared to death. We have our bags packed and ready to run anyway. please don't start this during fire season if it's going to go forward, and I hope it won't go forward as it is. But I'm begging you, don't. Yeah, and someone please look at the drawing of the deck because it's not done correctly, and it would impact the sight lines of our house.
The drawings didn't show the relationship between the houses properly.
The drawings did not show the relationship between the houses properly.
And their deck can look into our master bedroom.
Yeah. And it's too big. Oh, and the fire, they cut down a tree, I think without permission, and they left the dead tree sitting there now for weeks. And we asked them to, it's a fire hazard, and we asked them to remove it, and they haven't removed it. I just don't feel the care and concern for the neighborhood in any way. Maybe I'm old-fashioned, I'm old, I'm a senior, but I would love to feel neighborly with our neighbors, but at this point, I'm not feeling it.
Okay, thank you, Shrab. Do we have anyone else that would wish to speak?
I do have one more hand. Oh, Richard Hammer. Richard?
Okay. Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good. Okay, so I think the project is
I can't hear Mr. Hamer.
Can you hear me now, Commissioner
I can hear you
Swift?
now.
Okay.
Yes, I can.
I think this project is too large as presented. I think that comments should be made by the commission about downsizing it to make it fit better with Fairfax as a whole. I think that from what I've seen on the package, and I have not seen everything the commission has, but it seems like every parameter that can be stretched is stretched to the limit. And that is not really, I don't think that's a really good approach. I think that it's just oversized, and 288 cubic yards of material is a lot of material to go up and down those streets and through our neighborhood. And I just, from an outside member of this particular neighborhood, I think the project should be made smaller, and I concur with Mr. Egger. Thank you.
Thank you. Was that the last member?
I do not see any more hands at this time.
Okay. So if there's no more public comment, I'm going to close the public comment and then bring it back to the commission for discussion.
Point of,
yes, ma'am.
do we ever let the applicant respond? Well, I guess they already have in many ways in that letter. Thanks, sorry. Just wondered if the applicant had any final words before we go back.
Thank you for the opportunity, Mimi. I don't have any additional words, but I can ask the rest of the applicant's representatives if they'd like anything else to respond.
They're allowed to talk. This whole, yeah. Go ahead and unmute if you have something you'd like to say. Doesn't seem like it at this time.
All right, thank you. So,
I'd
like to make a comment.
Wants to say something.
Oh, I'm sorry, you do have a comment. Please go ahead.
I do have a comment. I'm sorry. I didn't quite know how to unmute it. I actually just want to make a point to say that I haven't had the privilege yet of knowing anybody on the Planning Commission. So this submission by opposition that I know somebody on the Planning Committee, I think you can confer among yourselves, is just simply false.
Okay, thank you.
And I've already represented that I was a former member and I no longer am. And I think it took 6 months for them to appoint Shelley. So welcome.
All right, thank you. So bringing it back to the Planning Commission discussion. And I can't see everyone, so I'm just gonna call names. Mimi, did you have any comments or discussion items?
Sorry.
There you go. That's okay. There you go.
Um, yeah, I think with this project, we really have to look very closely at the design review. And, I'm torn between the neighbors who I agree with in terms of the concerns about the size of the proposed structure in light of the buildings, in the vicinity and their sizes. I do think it is very large. At the same time, I appreciate the fact that the existing developed footprint has been used, and that there's not really a structure going beyond that existing footprint. I'm very concerned about people purchasing, moving, and living in Fairfax and not feeling welcome here. And it does sound like this neighbor has, reached out to her neighbors in an effort to try to, work out what she was planning. And, I'm not sure what the difficulties are. We've got neighborhood issues where I live here in this sleepy little town as well that become very complicated and awkward and uncomfortable. And I really regret that in this instance, that people have sort of hard feelings against one another. I do think that the applicant has, property rights that allow her to build. And, as Mr. Hall pointed out, the meeting of all of the bells and whistles in terms of the FAR standards are, they're not a basis for, arguing that there's anything improper in this proposal. And so my focus in terms of evaluating this has been to really focus on the terms of our design review ordinance. And, we've got chapter 17, 040, the design review criteria. They go from sections A to N. And, in my evaluation, those criteria, I think that, there's reason to be concerned about height, harmonious, sort of the harmonious relationship of the proposal to the vicinity and the residential buildings in the vicinity. And so all of those design review criteria that focus on those aspects are the ones that give me serious pause. And I'd like to hear from the other commissioners.
Norma? Can you unmute?
I just did.
Go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I have several comments. First of all, frankly, I don't appreciate hearing comments about how there's an inside person on the planning commission who's going to do whatever inappropriately. That is an incorrect and inappropriate comment, and I do not appreciate it. Secondly, I think the major concern that I had and several of us had at the last meeting we reviewed this were the issues that came up around the sewer line, the triple owners sewer line. But in my mind, those issues were completely clarified by our legal counsel, and I find that it no longer is an issue. In terms of comments about how we are not conforming to the code, that we are not doing our jobs and not paying attention and going well beyond and in extreme measures to approve something that is so contrary to our codes. Also, I'd like to remind people that this is currently a 1,510 square foot, 2-story property, 20 feet, 10 inches tall, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. It's being converted into a 2,800 square foot property, not a 3,800 square foot property, as someone led us to believe. And also the earth that needs to be removed is done so in order to repair the foundation and to create a 2-car garage, a 2-car garage with tandem parking behind it. So this house can park 3 cars at a minimum on site, something I don't believe any other house in the neighborhood is able to say. The house is in terrible condition. The maintenance has been deferred for a very long time. And yes, it is a larger house. I'm a single person. I live alone, but I have many friends and family who have 4, 5, and 6 people in their household. I don't think we can limit household size in Fairfax. And the other thing is that this property, well, yes, it's larger than the 100-year-old properties that are currently there. It is completely within the development footprint of the existing building, with the exception of a few cubic yards for the garage. I think it's a shame that the owner cannot be allowed to make the major infrastructure improvements that are needed to be able to create a safe and comfortable living space. If I look at, again, I go back to the required setbacks, the required floor area ratio, the required lot coverage, the required heights. Everything that is proposed is, as far as I can tell, well within the requirements. The height allowed there is 35 feet. They're coming in at 3110 with 2 stories, whereas 3 stories are allowed by code. I am looking at the code here for residential single-family zone in a high-density district with the hill area permit requirements. All are being met. There is not a single variance being requested. There are many significant improvements being made to this property. And I have a difficult time trying to justify, based on design criteria, or a couple hundred yards of cubic excavation of or supposedly that it does not meet code. It has every engineering report available. It has they have secured a very competent and respected architectural firm. Their engineering firm are well respected. I find it difficult. I also live in a small house, and I have 1 story. Mine is probably the smallest, lowest house in the neighborhood, and everyone else around me has 2 and 3 stories. I'm not crazy about it, but this is my little house. 1,000 square foot, 1,200 square feet of additional living space is not the end of the world when we are talking about the exact same development footprint that was there before. This is not a house that is expanding horizontally or vertically, for that matter. And now that the sewer line issue is resolved to my satisfaction, I have difficulty finding reasons to deny a house that apparently meets every single code requirement that it is required to meet. And I will leave it at that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Shelley, did you have comments?
Yes, sure. So, it does seem large at 5 bedrooms, but, kind of what Norma said, I don't think it's really our business to question who or what family members are going to make up the household. And again, just trying to look at, trying to understand if there are actual things that are against code. And, I think that this has been reviewed by staff, and it seems to have been thoughtfully done. And I imagine they would have flagged anything, and in my looking, I don't see anything that actually contradicts our zoning code. And I also feel sad that this has turned negative on both sides. That that the neighbors are really upset, and I want to be thoughtful towards people's feelings about the street, but at the same time, people do have the right to buy homes and fix them up and live in them, and so we want to be thoughtful about whether or not this is harmonious with the other homes on the street, but at the same time, I want to honor our laws that are in place to protect our communities and allow our town to, for people to move in and for people to exercise their rights to their property. So I'm feeling a bit torn, but overall, I'm feeling supportive of the application.
Thank you. So I had a few comments that mirrors some of the ones already made. This is a small lot and it's on a slope, and the plans were made to fit the existing footprint of the house, and so no variance was required. The height of the building, while it is 31 feet, that's because that 31 feet, as I understand it, is going from a slope position, and the overall height difference to the roof line is only about 2 feet above the existing roof line. It's improving the parking for that house and ultimately, improves it for that area by building the garage that would fit 2 cars and would have space for the visitor parking. So it, off the road, and so that meets our parking requirement and code. I did have a couple questions. One, as I mentioned before, the south side addition has windows and kind of door size windows on them that would be up above 10 Walsh. So one of my concerns would be kind of privacy with those windows that are on that south side as they're above the 10 Walsh property. So one of my questions there would be if those windows could be changed a little bit to be to give more privacy to 10 Walsh. The other question that I had, and that would be for staff, should we get to that point with a resolution, would be this is a privately maintained road. It's not a publicly maintained road. So one of the questions that I would have for staff would be during construction of the property, what protections would be there for that road through that process. I mean, normally the road isn't paved, so that's a little bit different than other applications we've seen where we've had an application that was on a private road, but that would be another question for staff. So I think, and I also, share the concerns of the rest of the commission for the neighborhood, but I think I am supportive I would be supportive of this application in general, considering how it has been designed to improve a house that, as you could see, as I saw in some of the pictures that we saw of the underside tonight, I hadn't seen before, and I'm seeing things like a column that you would think was a column outside of a house on a porch, being one of the supports for the main floor. So this house obviously needs to be fixed to be habitable and to be safer for the neighborhood as a whole. So would the applicant be amenable to taking a look at the windows on the south side of the property, south side of the addition for privacy for 10 Walsh? I'd like to ask that of the applicant.
I'm sorry, which specific applicant would you like to ask that? Of the three, Laura has her hand raised. Well,
that would be Laura.
Okay.
Okay, yes, I believe that part of the windows are already clear story windows because there is a view in that direction. So if you're talking about if some of the other windows can be made shorter, I think that is that's a possibility. I also wanted to respond. I had a picture of an aerial to show how we had used the survey and the aerial to show where the relationship between 6 Walsh Lane and 10 Walsh Lane was. And we've also got, like, there's 2 large oak trees that are remaining on the property between the two. And there's also landscaping that's proposed along that side. So I think we can make the windows a little shorter, but there is existing screening there, and there's going to be proposed to be more as well.
Okay, thank you. For the commissioners, are we at a point where we can entertain a motion, Mimi?
I would like to ask a couple questions. First, I
Sure.
just want to respond to Shelley because, you know, my view is that part of the laws of Fairfax are the design review criteria. And as I said before, I'm looking at those because, you know, I want to make sure that we're meeting those criteria for our decision making. And, you know, 17.020.040H says that we should consider the extent to which structure conforms to the general character of other structures in the vicinity, insofar as the character can be ascertained and is found to be architecturally desirable. So I recognize that we have nothing that specifically across the board limits this size, this height, you know, all of the you know, objective standards are being met, and that we are now in design review looking at a more you know, a question that asks us about character and harmony. And, you know, Fairfax is nothing if not full of character and harmony. So, as I think Norma said, you know, when there are a couple of us who live in small houses and there are larger houses around us. And, you know, so to some extent, the fact that you have smaller homes with larger homes close by is part of our character. You know, the diversity of the buildings in our communities are part of the character. But what I'm concerned about is the harmonious element. You know, and I just don't want to dismiss out of hand. I think that what you guys are saying is that, you know, big picture, you're really in favor of this. But at the same time, taking into account, you know, what we heard about SB 1120 or whatever, you know, these efforts to limit our ability to, you know, decide on things like character and harmony, we typically see as threats. And so here, I just think it's important that that criteria be addressed, you know, that we have a little discussion about it and how we reconcile the concept of a harmonious design that we're required to, you know, make a finding about.
Maybe Laura, could you speak to in thinking about just how the house will look on the street with the other houses around? Like, did you guys, you know, or staff, I don't know who would be best to answer that question, and thinking about that more subjective, harmonious question?
Oh, I think I'm unmuted. You know, the houses are a really eclectic mix. There's, you know, the design of the addition that's over the garage. I mean, that was like to mimic the existing roof. You know, we looked at different types of roofs, and that's really what seemed to blend in to the house and looked best. And I'm also thinking there's one down right on the cul-de-sac that has kind of like a similar design that's on the left side, and it's, you know, has a small, I mean, it's got, I think, a 2-story look. You know, we've cantilevered the upper floor. We've got some roof different shapes. I've really tried to, you know, soften any type of large height. And it's really that one corner. And it's because we're meeting natural grade that it's tall in that particular corner. The rest of it is, the height is similar to what's there now if you're looking from the street, the front left corner of the garage. But other than that, there's not really any there. I would say that they're all kind of contemporary type of homes along, the street with wood siding, and there's a different type of siding in one particular area of the house, the addition. And we just thought that it kind of created a visual interest with the rest of the house. And we tried to pick, muted colors, dark colors, so they wouldn't stand out. So, we put a lot of careful thought to try to make it blend in and make it. So I don't know if that answered your question or not.
Yes, thanks.
I'm sorry, you're on mute, Chair.
Mimi, how would you see this application changing in your mind, or could change?
I mean, as I said, I'm on the fence in terms of, this, the issue in terms of ensuring that we've got, proper and appropriate design review as part of our review in the Planning Commission. I actually don't like that we have to do that, because I think it's the kind of job that does deserve sort of more time and attention than the Planning Commission at the Planning Commission level, and so I'm frustrated in part that we don't have a separate design review board, but and my own experience in these areas is, from a background kind of limited, and compared to the rest of our commission, certainly. So, I struggle with sort of how this might be adjusted. I think there's a number of different options with respect to height, with respect to the amount of soil being excavated, with respect to, the floor area ratio, and just, bringing it all in a bit to actually sort of reflect more of the size of the other residences in the immediate vicinity. Because I hear the neighbors and the commenters who are concerned that, you've got, it's just too big, was what I think a bunch of people were commenting on. And at the same time, it's fine from our strict reading of all the ordinances. So, I don't know. I don't want to keep going on because I don't necessarily have a solution. And it sounds like the rest of the commissioners are in favor of this project. I think I'd like to hear a little bit more, Cindy, if you think that the windows need to be changed or not. But other than that, it sounds like you guys are all ready to go.
And I think as far as the windows, I just think because of the size of them and how they are higher than 10 Walsh, that there may be privacy concerns with those. So from my viewpoint, if the applicant was willing to make some modifications there, acceptable perhaps to the planning staff, that would be something that would be of a benefit. But I hear what you're saying about, you know, design review, because it is difficult, because we do have and appreciate our eclectic mix of homes in Fairfax. So it does make it difficult to make those decisions, because we appreciate that. So not everything is going to be cookie cutter. But that was my concern on the windows, which it seems like the applicant is willing to address, perhaps with planning staff on that. And maybe what we need to do is,
Can I interject?
Yes.
Yes, Chair, Acting Chair. I guess my question would be, typically when we're talking about privacy impacts with respect to windows, what we direct applicants to do is to put the lower sill a minimum of 6 feet above finished floor, or to run obscured glass. And as a point of clarification, I'd like to get some direction from the commission whether they would direct staff to direct the applicant to do that. Because short of that, you know, you're going to be looking out those windows.
So let me ask the applicant to respond to the size of the windows as Planning Director Berto mentioned. Laura?
Okay, so I tried to send a message to my client to see if they're okay. I don't know about the 6 foot sill, because I think that is rather rather tall. That side of the house used to have another deck that we eliminated from the application. So some of the windows, I made them, those were where doors were. So we did make them a little bit shorter, because that's probably, I mean, that is would be where the view is, and you'd want to be able to see the view from the windows. I mean, we respect the privacy of the neighbors also. So, but I would like to have a little bit of flexibility with not having to do, you know, a 6 foot sill, because your eye level is not at 6 feet. Your eye level is less than that. It's more like 5 feet. So if we could do, you know, a sill that's less than 6 feet, but greater than a normal sill of like 30 inches, I would like to request something like that. So maybe something more like at 4 foot or something like that.
Through the chair.
Yes, and then also, I also want to emphasize the fact that we do have we have 2 mature oak trees that are along that side, and then we also have landscaping that's proposed along that side of the new landscaping that was in the plan that was provided.
Through the chair.
Yes.
I'm looking at the property and the neighborhood now on Google Earth. And there are so many trees all around this house. I know a couple of the houses are close together. The most immediate houses, the roofs appear to be even larger than 6 Walsh surrounding the house. But there are so many trees. As I look at my 3-dimensional Google map, I cannot imagine what windows they would be looking into of their neighbors with all the trees that are around that property. I would accept the architect's comment about looking at the windows and perhaps not making them, high windows. But if it becomes an issue with a neighbor, then they can work out with staff either some type of a window covering or lighting, or there are many options of what can be done with windows. I would rather not tell them what we want them to do, but let the architect come up with something and discuss it with the immediate neighbors who feel they're being peeped into.
So for the rest of the commissioners, is that something, because I think we're at a point now where we can make a motion for resolution. Is that something, as far as the windows, that the rest of the commission?
I would be willing to make a motion.
Okay.
If there are no other comments or questions.
Let me ask one question of staff then, that it goes back to the issue of the private road and how that could be addressed during a construction phase.
May I speak?
Yes, you may.
Okay. Yes. I guess we weren't. I mean, we knew it was private, but you should change you should amend or change one of the conditions in your resolution, and I believe it is condition 2B. Okay, because it says a videotape of the roadway conditions. Oh, I'm sorry, it's the next one. Oh wait, hang on, I lost it. I had it a minute ago.
There was one we had talked about at the last meeting, I thought, I don't know, but there was something about adding emergency damage to 2C.
Yeah, and what I'm trying to find, there was one that referred only to public roads, and I wanted to insert
right.
That's the one.
And private. Okay, so it is. I did cite the right one. It's 2B. So the applicant shall prepare and file with the Public Works Director a videotape of the roadway conditions on the public and private construction delivery routes. Right? Public and private
delivery routes.
And then they are responsible for repairing any damage they make to any of the access roads that are damaged by their construction vehicles. So I'm trying to find that one now.
B, submit a cash deposit bond or letter of credit to the town in an amount the cost of grading, weatherization, or damage to public or private roadway.
Thank you, Mimi.
Including emergency damage.
I would just recommend those additions. Thank you.
And we also discussed in 2A saying submit a construction plan to the Public Works Department, which may include but need not be limited to. You know, I'm not sure there's a difference there, but and then in 2G we added the applicant shall or submit 3 copies.
I'm sorry, Mimi. Excuse me, Mimi. I could not hear your last 2 comments. Your flipping pages drowned it out.
I apologize, Norma. I just had notes from our previous discussion. I mean, they're vague. I don't actually remember these discussions. I just have my notes.
On 2A and 2G was what I didn't hear well.
I think I had submit a construction plan to the Public
Works,
which may include but need not be limited to. So, you know, it is limited, it is not limited to, suggests there's something else that they need to include, whereas need not be limited to means this is the least, you know, you have to include this stuff at the very least.
Mm-hmm.
And then to B, we would add the public and private construction delivery routes. In 2C, we would say repair of possible damage to public or private roadways, including emergency damage. And in 2G, we would say the applicant shall submit 3 copies of the record survey.
3 copies of what, Mimi?
It's all there. All you need
Okay,
to ask
okay.
applicant for.
Thank you.
And then the second whereas on the first page of the resolution, change the hearing date from August 20th to 9/17.
I have a question.
Oh, and on page 6, number 8 at the top, where it talks about any damages to the public portions of Walsh, Manzanita, etc. Should that be public and private portions?
Sure, public and private on all counts.
For Walsh, right?
I don't want to make this more complicated, but on some hillside projects like this, the Planning Commission has actually included a condition that the employees shall be carpooled to the site, so that they're not all driving their vehicles up there. They have to park somewhere else and be ferried up. Just a suggestion.
Well, considering the location, I think for this application, that wouldn't be a bad idea. They can all be ferried up from the flats. But I agree with that. That would be good for this.
I do too.
Me too.
And if I might ask one more question regarding the windows, in looking at the existing south elevation, the 2 larger windows on that map have a certain height above finished floor. And just for purposes of trying to be as clear as possible, one of the directions and conditions we could apply would be to say that the new south elevation windows shall have a minimum plate height no less than the existing larger windows on the second floor. I'm just trying to avoid having a lot of cross conversations and with the applicant where we're not clear what we're going to end up with. And that would seem to be a pretty straightforward condition that we could apply right now, where we simply say, you've got existing windows, they have a certain height above the finished floor, raise those windows to match that.
But staff, write that down, please.
Does the applicant have any concerns with that?
I just want to make sure that I understand what Ben is proposing. So what you're saying is that the sill height should not be less than what is currently the sill height. But I believe on
correct.
Okay, so I believe there's an existing bedroom that you're talking about, bedroom that's in the back that we're kind of going to be. Okay, so I think that seems reasonable to me. I think it's like a standard like 6.0, like 4.0 tall window.
Okay, we can work out the elevation or the finished floor height, or height above finished floor as we get into the details of that.
So any other modifications to the resolution? All right, Norma.
I would like to make a motion that we approve the project for 6 Walsh Lane, a 50% remodel and 2-story addition to single-family residence, Hill Area Residential Development, excavation, design review, and tree removal permits, application number 20-8, with the following edits and enhancements to the resolution, including regarding videos of existing public and private roadways, that the applicant is responsible for repairs to any damages to the public and private roadways of Walsh Lane, including any emergency damages and repairs, that the windows at the 2nd story sill be a similar height to the existing windows. The architect and town staff will work out those details in consultation with the neighbor that is directly across those windows. That is section 2B and 2C of the resolution. In 2A, that the construction plan shall be provided to Public Works, including language that need not be limited to. Mimi, if you could clarify that, I'm not sure. Not limited to what was that?
Okay, in the whereas
In
clause
2A.
2A.
Oh, that was whereas.
Page 3. It's kind of the paragraphs after the whereas. There's a list of 4 items in Roman numerals. And
it will not be limited to that list.
Well, so the language should say, which may include, but need not be limited to the following.
Okay, include but need not be limited to the following. That's on page 3, 2A. And 2C, 2C is the section about repairing damages. No, I'm sorry, 2G is application. What was the 2G, Mimi? You also brought that up about the application submitted in 3 copies.
The applicant will submit 3 copies.
Applicant will submit 3 copies and add a condition. I'm not sure, staff can determine the best location for the condition to have construction employees carpool to the site as much as possible to eliminate wear and tear on the road and blocking residents' parking and access to the area. And I believe those were the only recommended changes to the existing resolution. And I move approval of the reso and those changes.
Okay, if I could make a friendly amendment, one of the things we need to add is changing the August 20th, 2020 date on the 2nd whereas on the 1st page to September 17th. And
to
then
the September approval date, yes.
Right. And then as to the windows, I think that it was from what Ben had provided and the applicant had agreed to, I think there was no need in there to consult with the neighbor on that. I think that's clear from what Ben's proposal was as well
Okay,
as the
on the
applicant's
sill
acceptance.
height,
Right.
the sill height be the current sill height, yes. I will accept those friendly amendments.
Do we have a second?
I can second. I'll second.
Thank you. We need a roll call.
Yes, I'm gonna call roll. Clark,
Aye.
Fragoso,
Aye.
Newton,
No.
Swift.
Aye.
Okay.
So the motion carries. And remind me, staff, on the appeal process.
They have 10 calendar days to file an appeal with the town clerk, and the cost for an appeal is $500.
Thank you. So with that, I think before our next item, that we'll take a 5-minute break and then the chair can come back in, if that's agreeable to everyone else.
I agree. Thank you.
All right. All right.
So we come back at 9:31.
Got it.
Tomorrow. Ah, there she is. Okay, we're back. All right, welcome back to the Fairfax Planning Commission. We're moving on now to public hearing item number 2, which is consideration of digitized geo-reference zoning, chapter 17.060 of the Ridgeline Development Visual Resources Map. Planning Director Berto.
Yes, thank you, Chair, members of the commission. As your commission is aware, we've had several meetings on developing these Ridgeline development maps and have slowly been forging consensus on certain items. First being that the zoning map entitled Visual Resources number 9 and the general plan map of visual resources are in fact one and the same map. At the last meeting, the Planning Commission directed continuing to digitize and map the horizontal and vertically defined ridgeline scenic corridors, and those would be the 150-foot horizontal distance on either side of the ridgeline and the 100-foot vertical distance, which is not measured per. So staff has continued to do this, and I want to preface this by letting the Planning Commission know that in some ways, because this was work in progress straight up to the production stage, and that I was not present for that we would probably need to insert a map, and I apologize for the confusion. It may be that your commission attempting to digest the material that is being presented to you in some cases for the first time tonight may be too much to ask for your commission to provide direction, but being as how it is on the agenda and a staff report has been written and we always manage to achieve some forward movement, I will continue with this effort. In terms of the geo-referenced maps, at the August 20 meeting, there was a geo-referenced version of the Ridgeline Scenic Corridor map. And what we did with that geo-referenced version was we were able to sync that to a Marin map parcel database and come up with 118 additional parcels that were in the geo-referenced version of that, I would say, traditional Ridgeline map. And it seemed as though the Planning Commission was supportive of that because obviously it captured parcels that we didn't know existed within that corridor. And what staff would like to do with that is not to replace the existing map number 9, Visual Resources map number 9, but to add this as one of the maps that is referenced. And we would call this a geo-referenced version of the current general plan map, entitle it Map of Visual Resources Geo-Reference. So that's one of the questions to the commission, is to add this to our zoning ordinance and thus be able to link this to parcels in the Marin map database. The other major challenges were with mapping the 150-foot horizontal and 100 vertical distances from the ridgeline. And the 150-foot horizontal map effort was relatively easy to do. You end up with a 300-foot wide corridor centered along the ridgeline, and you can see that in the map that you have before you. The 100-foot vertical map presented many difficulties, and one of these has to do with where we come up with the title of major ridgeline. As noted in the staff report, we don't have a, excuse me, in our map of visual resources, we do not have something listed as a major ridgeline. We came up with something that we believe is the equivalent of that, and perhaps some of the people who have history on this could weigh in. What we came up with is, when we were looking at our surface hydrology map, we came up with a major watershed boundary. And one of the questions we put to the commission and other interested parties is that seems to be the closest we get to something that represents a major ridgeline. In other words, you have a ridgeline because, or what a ridgeline does is it separates watersheds. Fairfax has many sub-watersheds, and in this instance, it has very few major watershed boundaries. Most of those boundaries that are shown in that map lie outside Fairfax, and you can see that in the mapped Fairfax boundary that's in your packet. You can see that most of that watershed, I would say about 2/5 of the historic 1974 maps actually lie within Fairfax, and within the area that is within Fairfax, the major watershed boundaries really are in 2 locations. But that was one of the challenges we faced. Another challenge we had was accepting that we would be using the major watershed boundary as the equivalent for a major ridgeline. When you get into the detailed mapping of where that major ridgeline goes, it strongly appears that some of those ridgelines, and including the one major ridgeline in the center of Fairfax, runs far enough downhill that to apply the 100 vertical foot boundary would extend the Ridgeline Scenic Corridor into the flatland portion of Fairfax. And I'm going to try to share screen with you right now because this is a map that didn't make it into your packet, unfortunately, but I believe it is useful. So with your forbearance, let me see what I can do here. Yes. Okay. So this, let me pull this out a little bit. What we have here, let me try it one more time. Okay, there we go. This is the major watershed boundary that staff believes should also be considered a major ridgeline. And what you can see at the bottom is as it heads toward the flatlands, the 100-foot vertical distance widens out. And so it ends up capturing far more homes and properties on the lower portion than it does on the upper portion. Furthermore, we arbitrarily, in this instance, eliminated it or finished it at the edge of the actual break of the slope. So in other words, what I'm tracing with my cursor right now is where the steep hillside, or in this case right here, ends, and the flat, what we call the peneplain, or the alluvial flatland, the flatlands that have been built up by eons of flooding and sediment deposition start. So this is the flat portion of Fairfax. This is the hill. And what happens is this identified ridgeline only stops 80 vertical feet above the edge of the bottom of the slope. And what that means is that additional 20 feet, remember that definition says it's 100 vertical feet, that additional 20 feet of drop would extend the Ridgeline Scenic Corridor all the way downstream to the edge of Fairfax. And this is pretty clearly not what was intended. When you look at the original map that defines the Ridgeline scenic corridors, there was no runoff into any flatland. So there's a number of questions and challenges, and they're not necessarily, again, some of this was, when I went through the material with staff prior to this meeting, I was realizing, oh, okay, we didn't bring a couple, or this map, which was done I think it was done on Friday, and it didn't make it into your packet. But we have two things. Is number one, with this, what staff believes is a major ridgeline, it's defined as a major watershed boundary in Fairfax's 74 maps, with it terminating only 80 vertical feet above the flatland portion of Fairfax. Should we consider that no portion of a ridgeline scenic corridor should extend into the flatland portion of Fairfax? The next question is, should we only extend the 100 vertical feet in a perpendicular distance? You will see that in the definition, the distance definitions, for example, the 150-foot horizontal, it's the perpendicular distance from the ridgeline. That's why you have such a nice, consistent 300-foot wide corridor total tracing this ridgeline. But with the question of the 100 vertical foot drop, it doesn't talk about perpendicular. And in point of fact, if you don't apply it perpendicularly, this area would extend far past this pink area. And I realize, and feel free in your questions or comments to let me know that this is just simply too confusing, because again, you're looking at this map for the first time and it's not what you studied. And I see some, I'll get to you in a second, Norma.
Okay, thank you.
But these are some of the questions. One of the concepts that staff came up with and would like to come back to your commission would be to simply not use the 100 vertical foot distance for the bottom portion of this major ridgeline. In other words, simply agree that we're going to be switching at some point to the 150-foot wide width or the traditionally mapped ridgeline scenic corridor width, which these actually, the 150-foot wide horizontal distance and the traditionally mapped ridgeline scenic corridor are very similar. There is one location about mid-slope on this major corridor, what staff believes is the major corridor, where the 150-foot defined corridor and the 100-foot vertical defined corridor are very close together. And again, to avoid this issue of having this 100 vertical foot cover far more land area at the bottom of the ridgeline than it does at the top, we would recommend that we simply use the 150-foot wide horizontal corridor for this bottom portion. Otherwise, you're capturing all these properties at the bottom of the slope, where it visually impacts far fewer people than higher up on this slope. And staff felt that that was a fairness issue. So looking at the questions that staff posed in the report, the questions are, do we add another map of visual resources and use the geo-referenced map because it does enable us to capture the additional 118 parcels because we can sync it up with the Marin map database? And should we prepare a digitally geo-referenced map of a 100-foot vertical and 150-foot horizontal ridgeline scenic corridor map? Should we also prepare amended zoning language so that it's clear that what we're doing is we're using all of these maps, whichever captures more area? And finally, and like I said, tonight you're looking at this map for the first time. simply direct staff to continue mapping this and come back to your commission at a future meeting with this better described in something that your commission can take more time to digest. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Berto, really appreciate it. I'm just wondering if anybody has any questions about this latest presentation now that we've got this map up here. And
I do through the chair, if I may.
Please go ahead.
I like the idea of these different maps that show different qualities. I like using all of them. I like the idea of the geo-referenced title on one of these maps. My only concern is that I have no idea where this point is in reality. If staff could provide some type of overlay, if not an official overlay on the map, but at least something for us. Director Bento, you were pointing at the end of this where it goes into the flatlands, and it's the green and red ridgeline, and then there's that kind of bluish point. If you could just give us a sense of where is that bluish rounded point? Where
Yes.
That would be extremely helpful. Other than that, I love the direction you're going in, and I would say do move forward and come back to us as you suggest. If I could just figure out even which way to hold the map even would be helpful for me. Thank you.
I'm sure with things like inclusion of streets and really zooming in on those specific areas, we'll be able to clarify a lot of those questions.
Good, at least major landmarks, if not street by street. Thank you.
Very good.
So I have a couple questions.
I'm recognizing Cindy, and then Mimi has her hand up as well.
You mentioned in the staff report that a major ridge is not shown in the visual resource map. And as can be seen from, I think you're talking about the surface hydrology map, there's only 2 major ridges. But when I go back to the Ridgeline development ordinance, it has a definition of major ridgelines that are those areas located on the visual resources map. And so looking at the visual resources map, when you've got all of those, and I don't have it in front of me, all those highlighted areas, you know, my thinking, and I'm getting confused here, is that our major ridge lines are the ones that are identified in that visual resources map.
You took the words out of my mouth.
I figured I would do that, Mimi. And that's what we've been going for. I know when you look in the general plan and you look at definitions, it talks about ridge lines as a line connecting the highest points along a ridge and separating drainage basins. So that gets more into watersheds and surface hydrology, but that's not, I think, what the ridgeline development and that the visual resources map is defining as major ridge lines. It's for a different purpose. So your definition of them and referring to the surface hydrology map is confusing to me.
Yeah, I think, you know, this is one of these challenges is going back, 40 some years, is when you're looking at how it's describing the 100-foot and 150-foot Ridgeline Scenic Corridor, they're breaking it up by saying the 150-foot is the area on either side of the ridgeline within 150 feet, and then or 100 feet vertically of the major ridge. So that's one of the questions, and if that's the direction of the commission, staff will proceed with that direction. That what you're saying is basically, if we've identified it as a ridgeline, defined ridgeline, that you consider all of those major ridgelines. We have actually developed some draft maps that show what happens when you use that 100-foot vertical distance. And we do have that problem with more than one of those ridgelines with the runoff into the flatland area. So at a minimum, we're going to need to redefine that so that we say, Fairfax is lucky in that we have steep hillsides and then you end up in the flat area, and there's not a lot of interpretation about, well, where does that end? Because our hillsides pretty much end in the flatland. It doesn't have a lot of runoff, but I'd be happy to come back with a map that shows what happens if we define all of those ridge lines, or consider all of those ridge lines as major ridge lines, and then what happens with a 100-foot vertical.
And can we hear from Mimi now?
Yeah, I mean, I am totally with you, Cindy. The definition in Chapter 17, 060, 020, that's where all the definitions are. Major are depicted as the areas on the Visual Resources Map number 9. So those are, in my view, the major ridges both within and outside of the town boundary. They include the planning area ridges, and they're all the green ones. And the ridge line is the uppermost line in elevation traversing a major ridge. So that, to me, was the red line in the middle of the green area. But all the green area is major ridge, and the red line is the quote-unquote ridge line. So I am not sure I fully understand horizontal, vertical, parallel, whatever other distances we're talking about. That to me is confusing and just shows my lack of engineering background, because I don't understand it very well. But I agree with Norma that it would be very helpful to see Sir Francis Drake or something. I mean, I can tell wherever you have the town boundary, I can see Deer Park, which is that little foot at the bottom, the southern end, I guess, of the town. That little loop.
The panhandle.
Right. And, you know, so you can sort of see Bolinas Road is sort of got on the Visual Resources Map number 9, and Sir Francis Drake are marked as the highways or something, and they have the little black triangles running around. So you can sort of see Bolinas going out to West Marin, and you can see Sir Francis Drake going up to towards Woodacre on the Visual Resources Map number 9. So yeah, the major ridge line hits right Bolinas somewhere over, you know, I don't even know where that is. So that would be helpful to see, you know, the street overlay on this. I guess my reaction is that because I don't necessarily agree with the way you've couched all of this, I'm not necessarily sure I'm on board with, you know, even answering the questions.
Okay, I've got the Visual Resources Map number 9, at least the digitized version of that, on the share screen right now. So that does have a couple of the major roads, but I get the thrust of, you would like to see if we were to consider all of these as major ridgelines. And of course, that would be the Ridgeline Scenic Corridor. So you would like to see what happens if we run the 150-foot horizontal distance and the 150-foot or the 100-foot vertical distance in all of these. And we can certainly come back with that, with the caveat that, as I said, this finishes 80 feet above the flatland. The one at the end of the Elliott Preserve, if you can see it right here, it actually finishes in the stream. So there were some mapping challenges with these original maps, because if that's a major ridgeline and it finishes in the stream, you're basically, again, running your Ridgeline Scenic Corridor all the way to the downhill terminus of Fairfax. So we're going to have to make some interpretations and clarifications, probably in the language, that says that we're not finishing any Ridgeline Scenic Corridors in the flatland portions of Fairfax. But I'll need to show you that on the map, or at least one of the maps.
But the Ridgeline Scenic Corridor definition talks about whichever is greater as well. So it's not both, it's an either or.
Right, but it's additive, because when you put these all together, it's whichever extends the furthest. The problem is, like I said, let's just use this Elliott Preserve. This isn't a ridgeline. When you look at that carefully, it's in the stream. So, a stream by definition is the low point, not the high point. And so if you take that and you drop 100 vertical feet, you're encompassing everything downhill from that. And you're basically encompassing the entirety of the flatland area of Fairfax. And again, I can discuss it and try to verbalize it all I want until you see what that is. That will help clarify what happens when you say whichever is greater. Because if you run that 100-foot vertical from the bottom of this ridgeline, I could just tell you, it's the entirety of the flatland portion of Fairfax.
So thank you very much for all of that feedback to him. I know that one of the reasons why I wanted to look at this a little bit more closely is just to make sure that the definitions of what we were doing is clear, that if we need to add to this map, that it would say major ridge lines, but also to consider some of the other language that's on this visual resource map. If we, in other words, some jurisdictions have class 1 ridge lines, which might be these center line, all of these ridge lines that are on here defined as major ridge lines. And they might even say that there are some secondary ones that are important, and maybe that's not what I'm suggesting, but how that falls into this is that as you start to drop down the hill, when you're looking at certain viewpoints, some areas above a certain, like maybe above a certain elevation, all of that is critical, and below a certain elevation is only critical if it's from certain viewpoints or something like that. So I don't really know, how this is treated, but I just wanted to understand how you're interpreting this. So how you're interpreting that is that the 150 feet then starts from the center line of the highest point of that ridge line then and goes horizontal 150 feet in one direction and 150 feet out in another direction. And then you go down right from the center of that ridge 100 feet, and then you're drawing a connection between those two. And then that is the triangle that is that shaded spot. Is that what you're doing?
Well, you can see it again on share screen right now, that this blue area shows you, let me zoom in a little bit. You can see how much additional land area. And in part, I don't think in 74, they really had a good idea of what was happening when they had that 100-foot vertical distance from the ridgeline, because what you're essentially doing is you're saying, starting at any point, drop down 100-foot vertical feet. And you can see we called this a minor ridgeline in this draft, but there is your 300-foot wide corridor. And here is your 300-foot wide horizontal corridor. Here's your 100-foot vertical corridor. You can see that it's more than twice as wide in many of these areas. And here's another example of just how much further out it extends. So when we come back with that map, I think you'll see that in some instances, it really adds. I mean, this is another ridgeline where the 100-foot vertical is twice as wide as the 150-foot horizontal. So,
and I guess what I'm having difficulty with is maybe when we come back, I think this is an important exercise, but we also have to be looking at it at a cross section as well. In other words, yes, we're looking at a map at a flat surface to say, where does this apply? But then we have to take it to a vertical way and say that anything that's in this triangle then cannot, if you had a structure that was constructed in below that area, then you cannot insert itself. I'm losing my mind, but that you
I know what you're talking about. Right.
And go into that triangle, or you have to get a variance, right? Isn't that what we're talking about?
Well, it's a policy question is if you have a taller structure that now extends to within that area, those are the type of questions. Is it simply property that's located within, or is it a structure that might extend into it? And that's another great question. So there's just a ton of issues, and it's all really oriented at the 100 vertical foot question. So I think I'll come back with several diagrams for your commission to consider, and maybe some cross sections as you suggest. That'll be a little bit tricky. I mean, just to make things even more muddled tonight, one of the things that the GIS person and I realized is that when you start going out 100 vertical feet from that ridge line, you encounter little valleys with upslopes that maybe only go up another 20 feet, but then it drops off. And this is where you really add to the width of the Ridgeline Scenic Corridor, because you're not just dropping downslope 100 feet, you're dropping downslope 50 feet, then going up another 20 feet, and then dropping down the remaining 50 feet. And so there's going to be a lot of assumptions before we get to the end of the 100 vertical foot discussion. And I will do my best to clarify all of these verbal concepts with good, clear diagrams for your commission to discuss and provide direction on.
We didn't hear from Shelley, or does anybody else have any other comment before we close out this item? Thank you, Ben.
Don't we have public comment too? I mean, we've kind of gone into debate before public comment, I think.
Can I ask one, I'm sorry, can I ask one more question on this map? And I assume you're going to, I don't know if this is that attachment C map that we didn't get that you're going to send to us, but I'm only seeing a portion of it, so I don't see the legend. But yeah. So is this the attachment C that you were going to send us?
Let me take a look at the attachments.
Yes.
And people were working so hard while I was gone.
Yeah, understand. I'm just trying to figure out what this is in relation to the packet.
It is, Ben.
It is? Okay. I'm going to say it is. Thanks for the help.
I do think that Mimi's point is well taken, that I think we should break and see if there's anybody in the audience that would like to speak on this item.
Well, let me just finish my one question so I can try and understand this. I don't understand why the blue is further out from the 150 feet horizontal.
What you see there is the fact that the 150 foot horizontal is a set distance. So there's your ridge line, which is this very fine point that defines the break in the watershed. You know, the water on one side of this flows this way, and on the other side goes this way. So we take this infinitesimally thin ridge line and we measure out 150 foot horizontal. So it has nothing to do with how far down it goes. It's just a total corridor that's 300 feet wide. With this, what you see here are your various sub-ridges, finger ridges. So in this instance right here, in order to drop 100 vertical feet, you've got to extend all the way out on this relatively shallow slope sub-ridge to this point before you get to 100 vertical feet below this ridgeline. From here to here is 100 vertical feet. So that's why some of these are super wide, and where the ridge is steep, then by golly, by the time you get to this 150-foot vertical or horizontal distance, you've also dropped 100 feet vertically.
So that's the assumption you're making then, based on your understanding of the definition.
Yes, and as you can see from the questions, is that it's a very complex topic, and there's a lot of open questions. And I will, and of course I'm trying to do this from Montana, and it was work in progress all the way up to the Friday packet date. So this is just to let your commission know that there's a lot of complexities and a lot of questions that we have.
And I think, Cindy, that's exactly why some jurisdictions have a class 2 ridge, because there's a spine that comes off the class 1 or this primary ridge. Is there any value to this secondary ridge? That's where that discussion starts to go down that rabbit hole. Okay, so do we have anybody from the audience who has their hands raised or would like to speak on this item?
I do not see any hand raised at this time.
We have Frank Yeager.
Mayor Egger is there.
Yes, thank you. Frank Egger, Meadow Way.
Hello.
The staff report says the proposed map is consistent with the 1974 general plan, open space element, prepared originally by WMRT, and that was Wallace, McCarg, Roberts, and Todd. Fairfax is currently processing the most controversial subdivision project to come before the town in 40 years. The Ridgeline Scenic Corridor includes the ridgeline running up from Marinda Drive to the top of the northwesterly boundary of the Wall property. The other ridgeline runs from the top of Jolly Hill, that's above St. Rita and Marinda Oaks. From the top of Jolly Hill, a northeast direction above Marinda Oaks and the Ridgeway Willow neighborhoods to Teresa and Oak Springs in San Anselmo. WMRT knew exactly what they were doing in 1974. The 1974 town council did not see any ambiguity in anything WMRT was proposing at the time. My concern is the Ridgeline Scenic Corridor map is being modified and may benefit the Marinda Heights subdivision proposal project that's coming before the Planning Commission momentarily. And that project does not even meet the current zoning requirements of Fairfax's upland residential zone. Thank you very much. Just be very cautious with what you do here. Thank you.
We see no other hands raised at this time. Was there any more feedback to staff before we move off this item?
Yes, if I might.
Commissioner Newton.
I do think this is a fascinating exercise, and I really appreciate all of staff's hard work on these maps and getting this digitized. I think for me, the key to the next step in this process is getting a clear understanding for Linda's ease of mind and everybody's ease of mind as to what the existing ordinance means with respect to the where the vertical and horizontal distances that are defined in the ordinance actually are in light of the level of science that we can currently employ to identify both the major ridges and the ridge lines as depicted on the visual map, and the additional area discussing. And thank you for further explaining that lower ridge issue with the vertical distance. That was helpful. So that's my recommendation, that we develop a map that says, here's all the areas are subject to the Ridgeline ordinance in Fairfax, and that, you know, we get the public's input on that and agree to that. I mean, I don't think that having a map that reflects what these definitions mean in terms of, you know, geospatially identifying the precise, you know, distances is a bad thing. I think that it really just clarifies the existing ordinance. It's not changing anything. It's simply reflecting what the current ordinance says. And once we have that more clear understanding of where the current ordinance applies, I think at that point we could then begin debating in a more public forum whether that's appropriate. But those are my thoughts.
Okay, not seeing any other hands at this time. Thank you very much. Ben, do you feel like you have enough direction then? Thank you.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. It was actually, even with the some people call planning the science of muddling through, and with the muddle we threw at your commission, I think we have some excellent comments and direction.
All right, thank you. Well, then we'll go ahead and move on to the minutes from August the 20th. And does anybody have any comments or changes on these minutes?
I have a question on them.
Commissioner Swift.
And it's a question for Ben. In the planning director's portion of the report, you talked about the TUPs that had been granted. And you included 60 Pastori Avenue. And I didn't check to see if that was correct in the minutes, but my question was, what at 60 Pastori Avenue was granted a temporary use permit for?
Yes, that is Flying Dutchman Gymnastics, and that has been previously doing some activities out there, but that's the use that was out there.
Okay, so that they're actually have a use on that property then, because that's
yes.
All right. And they have classes out there?
Yes.
Okay. That was my only question. I didn't have any corrections to the minutes.
Did anybody else have any changes to this minutes? Not seeing any. Does anyone want to make a motion for approval of the minutes as is?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of the August 20th, 2020 Planning Commission as presented.
The motion
I will
has been moved
second.
by Swift and seconded by Fragoso. Can we take the
I'll
vote?
Call roll. Clark,
Yes.
Fragoso,
Yes.
Newton,
Yes.
Swift,
Yes.
Chair Rodriguez.
Yes. The motion passes 6-0. Okay, moving off that item then to our final item. This is Town's Business Recovery Programs, and it's agenda attachment number 4. And what I wanted to include for you, Ben had been given the authority through an urgency ordinance of the town manager to complete temporary outdoor use permits as well as encroachment permits, and so on. At the back of that urgency ordinance is a memorandum that the town manager provided to the mayor and town council about the town's business recovery programs, which included the temporary use permits and the encroachment permits that we had been asking for. So I wanted to get that in the packet in case you had any questions of staff. Are there any questions for staff? Great. Thanks for taking the time to pull that information together. I think it was very helpful. And then we'll just go ahead and move on then to the planning director's report.
Well, it's going to be very short. I've been enjoying my sojourn here in Montana, and I'm prepared to respond to questions that the commission may have.
Maybe you could answer about what happened with the appeal of the lodge to the town council.
Yes, the final lodge appeal was denied. So the decision by the planning commission, and planner Neil can probably respond. I believe they may have modified some of the seating arrangements that the planning commission made to benefit the appellant. But they essentially, the appeal was denied.
But they restored table 7 and the little 2-person table, the 2 tables on either side of the driveway. They put those back.
The council restored it, or the owners restored them?
Council did.
Mm.
Even along the back fence, right?
No, on the front at Drake, right?
Yeah, they didn't make any other changes to the way you had changed it, except they did restore. They didn't share your concern that there was any danger for people sitting at those 2 tables at the front along Sir Francis Drake.
Was that table 7? Or?
Yes, table 7.
Right.
Okay. How about any other questions for the planning director or staff? Not seeing any. How about any commissioner comments?
I have
Commissioner
a comment.
Swift.
In reference to our public comments on non-agendized items and Mr. Hamer's comments about NOAA radios, he was referencing the Yolandadale Firewise community in San Anselmo that has been putting out A-frame signage on Center Boulevard, and you've all seen those. And one of the latest ones talks about NOAA radios. So what as part of the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority and Fire Safe Marin's projects that have been submitted to the MWPA, I just wanted to mention that one of their projects is a pilot to pilot 1,000 NOAA radios within the county to make for those areas that in a PSPS don't have cell coverage or electricity. The NOAA radios would provide the ability to get alert Marin evacuation orders to them. So that is a pilot that will be starting as a part of Fire Safe Marin. So eventually we will be, hopefully, if the pilot succeeds, and it should, to be deploying those throughout the county. So I just wanted to comment on that we are doing that.
And I think any opportunity that you can decide when that pilot's went far enough and how we might make a recommendation to staff about whether it's appropriate to modify the conditions or not, or somehow loop planning staff into any conclusions that are drawn. It would be good, because that's the meat of his recommendation, was modify the conditions of approval to address the requirement of NOAA radios, but I don't know really where that was going.
Okay. That was all I had.
But what about the idea that, oh, go ahead, Commissioner Newton.
Well, yeah, I was also planning to follow up on some of the public comment on non-agenda items with the recommendation of a workshop or some kind of allowance for meetings with the community, the town council, and the planning department, planning commission to have more back and forth about issues that are of concern in general. I like the idea of maybe doing it twice a year and maybe having, you know, we can have a solstice and an equinox get together or, you know, whatever. The other thing I was going to request is, you know, to maybe report back on the wall property concerns that one of the commenters raised about. I didn't quite understand not doing weeds on the streets, whether that's a reference to maybe some, you know, green refuse issues or something. I could, so if you could follow up on that, find out what that's, or if you know now, that'd be great.
I believe the reference has to do with the weed removal on the fire roads. Last year, they did a lot of that. I haven't been up on the fire roads lately, but it may be that the weeds have not been whacked down, like, you know, grubbed out like they were last year. And I'll check the site and see, but I suspect that's the problem.
I'm really interested in the public comment from Deborah Benson about the removal of the bay trees and maybe the misnomer between what the fire department is actually saying and how we're interpreting what they're saying and how that then relates to arborist reports. So I think that's kind of one whole, and I really enjoyed meeting with the open space committee. And I think the more, I like the idea that Mimi brought up about 2 public meetings a year just to talk about things, but I'd really like to have them, you know, somehow, I don't know, you know, I think we'd have to talk about what would we be doing, like furthering some idea of where are our gaps or what are we thinking about doing. And I don't know whether it, you know, would be eventually when we get to some place on these maps, or maybe after Commissioner Swift has been meeting on the fire and maybe we figured out more on the NOAA radios or the tree removal, or whether we need to do subcommittees on some of these topics or what. But I think that these folks are recommending some good changes we need to think about a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think we need to be choking on smoke in a multi-state area to know that fire concerns and how our fire professionals are thinking about approaching things like certain species is a really relevant topic. So I agree that that's something that as soon as we can get those individuals on board for a meeting, I think that there's an intention to do so. And to the extent we involve other committees or something, but keep it focused on that, because I see that as very much a topic that will sort of evolve over time with respect to the town's tree ordinance and the knowledge that many people are amassing. I mean, you know, here, another example would be evacuation routes and vegetation along those routes. So, you know, there's just a tremendous amount of information, relevant information that is cross-linked in various committees and things like that.
Okay, it doesn't look, so is there any action that we can do to take some leadership on those topics, or you feel like those are just, because it would be nice to be leading on some of those in some way, or you feel like they're evolving and they're already happening and we don't really need to get involved?
Well, I think the town hall meeting is, I will bring that to the town manager's attention. I think one of the things that's driving us crazy is we're a social species. And, you know, I'm sorry, but even though I love to see your pictures, it's not the same thing as a meeting. We're really suffering from a lack of human contact, and Fairfax is such a communal entity. So it may be necessary that, or appropriate, that we just have kind of a more of an open-ended discussion. The challenge, I think, is that you know, you have the public comment period at the beginning of town council meetings where people, as you know, sometimes opine for over an hour on various topics of their, but I think it's a worthwhile subject to explore, and I will bring it to the town manager's attention.
Okay, so maybe with that we can move to adjournment, and I would like to just adjourn in honor of Connie Berto, who was and is Ben's mother, who passed away on August 8th. She's a founding member of the Marin Horse Council and a trail advocate, and will be remembered very positively. Sorry to hear about that. So if we could take
Lovely idea.
So if we could take a motion to adjourn, that would be great. All those in favor say aye.
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 Thanks, everyone. Nice
I'm
to
home
see
safe, Ben.
Yeah, Ben, enjoy your trip.
Relax. Don't do more Zooming.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I was supposed to go out backpacking out of Yosemite tomorrow for 5 days. And they closed it today, but it was going to be too smoky anyway.
Yeah.
You know, we were out on one day when it was unhealthy levels, and I have to say that we woke up the next morning all coughing. So I think discretion is the better part. We're praying for rain. I mean, that's the only thing that's going to work at this point.
We need to go out and do a rain dance.
I'll do it.
I'm game. I'm sure we can get Mimi out there too.
Oh yeah.
Up on the mountaintop, up on one of those ridge lines.
All right, everybody.
Bring out
Offer
the
a prayer
cover.
up tomorrow.
Thank you. Thank you, Tamala.
Good night, everybody. Thanks, Tamala.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
Thank you,
Dad.
Linda. Thank you, Ben.
See you here next time, Ben. And this officially concludes the Town of Fairfax Planning and Commission meeting for the month.
Thank the goddess.